Hi, I'm Andrew Kirsh, co-founder of Sklar Kirsh. On this podcast, I interview industry leaders. You'll hear their real-time opinions on today's market, their background, unique career highlights, and guidance for newcomers to the industry. This is the Kirsh Connection. Welcome to another edition of the Kirsh Connection. Had a lot of fun last week recording episode 100 with David Schwartzman. We got a lot of great feedback and accolades. Thank you for all the kind words. We are now embarking on the next 100 episodes. So for our 101st episode, we have Meg Epstein, the founder of CA South Development, on the show. Meg talks about her branded condo development, The Modernist, where she takes a condo development, sells them to end users who have the ability to rent them through Airbnb and other rental programs. It's a wide-ranging conversation with Meg Epstein that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. Welcome to another edition of the Kirsh Connection. I'm here with my good friend and client, Meg Epstein. Meg, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know you are in Nashville, a place that actually my wife considered moving to after the Palisades fire. Even though she had never stepped foot in Nashville, she thought that is where we needed to be.
We get a lot of LA, California transplants. I understand. I'm an LA, California transplant myself. So
The several times I've been there with you, from the downtown to where your house is located on the water, it's an amazing place.
yes.
So Meg, talk about your company. Actually, let's talk about before CA South. How did you get into the real estate business, and then we'll get more into what you have going on.
Yes. So I did live in LA. I'm from California, Northern California, but I went to UCLA. My very first job was in 2008 when I graduated, which was a horrible time to graduate, but it ended up being a really good thing because I got a job on a job site actually in Bel Air building luxury homes. So the first house I built was 60,000 square feet, a $60 million home. It was crazy. But that kind of gave me a really good foundation for construction, project management. I actually built it for a real estate developer, so I learned a lot from him when I was, 22, and basically kind of took that background. I did that in San Francisco as well, and built for tech, execs, luxury homes. And when I moved to Nashville, I had to transition into commercial because there was no $60 million home clients in Nashville at the time.
Talk about CA South development, and I guess when you started the company, what was the impetus?
The impetus was really to bring my background. So I followed my husband here. It wasn't like I didn't predict the huge commercial boom in Nashville and move right before then. It just kind of happened to work out that way. I was just following my husband. But the impetus was really I saw a really lack of California design or higher design in the Southeast. And I really wanted to bring a better sense of architecture and modernism to the Southeast. And that was just the original idea. Obviously, my background was in high-end homes, and I just quickly realized it took me about a year. I did do some high-end homes when I got here, but I realized that it just wasn't going to be like, what I was doing in California. And so I transitioned into the commercial side because I saw that there just wasn't a lot of well-designed residential product when I first started. And so I just wanted to give, basically what I wanted is someone moving from California. It wasn't in the market. And so that's what I decided to build.
And so were these initially single family products or multifamily products?
Condo buildings
Hmm.
initially. So it's sort of funny because I'm very much focused. I continue to focus on our condo projects. I have done a lot of multifamily. I've done opportunities in multifamily mixed use projects, but we really lean back into the condo side of things because they're really always continue to be undersupplied in the Southeast. When you compare it to multifamily development, I mean, there's probably 50 multifamily projects for every condo project. And when I started my company in San Francisco before I moved to Nashville, I didn't have any money and how I would pay my rent when I first went out on my own and not having a salary for the first time after college. I used to Airbnb out my apartment in San Francisco. And that was at the beginning of Airbnb. And I would, I'd get someone would rent my apartment for the weekend. I'd run over to my sister's house, go stay with her for the weekend and make my rent in the weekend. And that sort of entrepreneurial setup was what I wanted to give people here. So my first condo building in Nashville, I allowed people to short-term rent. It was something that was completely profound at the time. I was the only one that did it, and it was a total home run. And so we've actually just leaned into that model since then and refined it as Airbnb has become a lot more institutional and mainstream, and manage that process a lot more formally, because I was doing that in my San Francisco apartment that I'm pretty sure it was illegal to do at the time. I shouldn't tell my attorney that. But
I think the statute of limitations is over.
exactly. I think I was illegally renting out my Airbnb apartment, but so now we just set it up legitimately, as you know, so that people can make income on their residence and or investment property when they're not in it. We manage that whole process professionally, and that's just come after developing, many projects and owning them and operating them in the last decade. So.
How is the entitlement and permitting process? We'll focus on Nashville right now. I know you work in many markets, but specifically Nashville. Comparing that to your experiences in California.
I mean, I would have never been able to start a development company and round trip 400 million in deals if I had started it in San Francisco. I Nashville's an incredibly pro-business entrepreneurial place, particularly for Airbnb. It's pretty friendly. The mayor is definitely against, neighborhoods of Airbnb, and frankly, we are too. We actually don't think that is the best thing for a city to have bachelorette parties, renting next to a home with a neighborhood with kids, right? So we really build our buildings in commercial corridors that are zoned for hospitality, and we design them so that a hotel permit could be pulled later if needed. Like if the Airbnb legislation change, it will continue to change in all the markets we're in. There's markets now where, they're particularly anti-Airbnb. Charleston, St. Pete, as an example, it's not even allowed. Like in St. Pete, you can't Airbnb for less than 30 days. And that will continue to be a problem. And we actually like that because we want to supply a product that's in the right zone and protected by either doing it under a hotel license or doing it in a corridor where it's safe to know that you're going to be able to pull your STR permit indefinitely.
So talk about just Nashville in general. Obviously, it's gone through a significant uptick in demand, in population, in commercial activity. But then recently, there has been an oversupply issue with some declining rents. And now I know your product is condos. But if you could just talk about overall of the Nashville market, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I will always be bullish on Nashville. Getting here in 2016, even I remember when people thought, oh, this girl's coming in from California and she's overpaying for land. And if I had only just bought more land then, if I had the capital to do it, I could have never predicted what has occurred. I mean, the entire city skyline, all of downtown is completely different. I have a brand new music video in Wedgwood, Houston, or a venue, a music, big second Ryman Auditorium, basically just blocks from my office, all in an opportunity zone. There's an Hermes store around the corner from my office that I bought with a homeless person sleeping on the porch when I first bought it. It's just could never have anticipated the level of development and how many companies have moved here. Absolutely, the multifamily market is oversupplied right now, hands down. I do think that it will be a pretty fast absorption relative to other markets that have gotten oversupplied, particularly in the Sun Belt in the last construction development boom in the last couple of years. But every time I'm like, gosh, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe there's so much development. Starbucks just announced their headquarters moving here a couple weeks ago. I mean, we have Oracle that's not even open yet. Amazon's headquarters here. They're barely just fully back to the office. So I think there's a lot of things that make it so compelling beyond just obviously these large businesses. Moving here is a huge driver, but you also have Belmont and Vanderbilt and a lot of, academia. It's a healthcare hub. So it's a very dynamic, and then obviously the hospitality market. We have so many visitors moving here or coming and visiting, over 20 million a year. And so it's so dynamic that I think it could be a little bit lumpy in terms of the absorption, and it will, like in a down market, like we've, been in this recession, but I do think it will recover faster than, any other market, just because of all that, the dynamic growth drivers.
So you have a branded product called the Modernist. Why don't you tell my audience what it is?
It's essentially a purpose-built condo building where investors or residents, people that want to own a residence, can own and rent out when they're not using it, or full time, a short-term rental. And so after owning several units in our own buildings over the years, we used to let a bunch of different managers in the buildings, and it created, it was still, they were still very successful on the condo side and, on the developer side. But after owning them, we saw a kind of need and a lack of, and it's really not done anywhere, where a professional management team can handle the Airbnb process for, security, for efficiency, to really make sure it's managed well. So it's really in between like an Airbnb, someone just putting a listing up, taking pictures themselves, and creating an Airbnb, and a full hotel condo where you have these big hotel brands that charge 25 to 50% in vacation markets, and they charge all these fees, and there's blackout dates, and kind of more of like a timeshare type model. So it's really pushing the autonomy, and like it's much more investor centric. So it's really built for the actual investor or owner, and it's fee simple ownership. They have a lot of control. They can furnish it how they want. They can stay in it when they want. But it's otherwise professionally rented out when they're not in it. And it's a very seamless, high tech experience. I thought a lot about, I have 4 kids now. I travel. I don't want to go, spend thousands of dollars a night in a suite at the Four Seasons, but I'm also not, I'm apprehensive to just go and rent some random Airbnb. I want amenities. I want high security. I want a more professional, I want nice sheets. I want a frette robe. So this is really the culmination of a decade of being in the Airbnb space and wanting to offer like a 4-star Airbnb experience in a managed building. And that's what we call it, the Modernist. And those are, that's what we're selling now. And that's pretty much going to be our main focus for the next decade, at least, going into other markets and offering this product, because it's really just needed and it's not supplied by the big hotel chains and or independent Airbnbs.
Yeah. Interesting. So, are there other groups that provide this type of professional Airbnb type management, or is this a bespoke venture?
I mean, no, there's plenty of companies that offer, I'll give you an example. Like Vacasa is one that, rolled up a bunch of Airbnb management services, went public, then went private. The issue with those companies, they're either mom and pop, and those are great companies, and there's plenty of them in Nashville, right? And if you have an independent home and you want to you want to make income on it and professionally have it managed, you're going to pay, call it, 18 to 25% in a Nashville. In a ski market, it's going to be double, or a beach market, it's going to be double that. And that is a model, and I'm sure they do a great job. The issue is when you're building a building like I do, having a bunch of different managers all in the same building, it really makes the experience incohesive for the traveler as well as the owner. I mean, I've had different management companies, and just like hiring different property managers, you get, you kind of get what you pay for. So we've really been able to streamline, because there's so many units in one building, and offer it at 12% as an example versus, 18 to 25. And you're getting a GM on, general manager on site, you're getting security, you're getting all the things, you're getting the technology of what hotels offer. So your guests aren't meeting someone, they're not picking up a key underneath a mat somewhere in Nashville and taking it over to the Airbnb. They get a text code, everything's keyless. There's not a lot of, it's a pretty high tech, limited service experience. So we actually think people prefer that for privacy. There's a lot of wasted overhead in hotels with people standing around and, helping with bags. And we really try to think of like, what are the key components of a hotel that people like and need, and eliminate the waste. Because in our units, you get a full kitchen. If you're traveling with kids or a group, you get a laundry in your unit, and that's a lot more convenient for a lot of people. And they would trade that over, having more people in the building.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What is your current pipeline like? If everything from in entitlement phase to development phase to sales.
We're the furthest. I mean, obviously, we have two more in Nashville. These are our fifth and sixth buildings in Nashville that are under construction. One's completing in December in the Wedgwood Houston neighborhood, which is probably one of the hippest, cool neighborhoods in Nashville, near the new soccer stadium and Soho House and Hermes and all these high-end shops. It's really crazy because it's actually in an opportunity zone, which is sort of, I mean, that was from a 2010 census tract, and obviously it's, but it's still in an opportunity zone. So our buyers, we have a lot of op zone buyers that are taking advantage of that to get the 1031 or op zone treatment cash flow. And then the other one is in the Gulch View neighborhood, which is just adjacent to the Gulch. That one is finishing in April. So those are fully under construction and being sold now. The next pipeline is, we have one Winter Park, Colorado, and Greenville, South Carolina, another great markets that don't have a lot of, this 4-star type inventory. And then Savannah and Charleston are closely behind there. And then there's still a lot of markets where we see it working, like Tampa as an example is kind of on the periphery. Like we're closely watching it to see where construction costs a lot of these markets, like even a Scottsdale we have a couple sites there we're underwriting, but with where construction costs are, we kind of need inflation just to curb a little bit more, interest rates to come down, and then we can finish pursuing the projects there. So we have an exciting pipeline. It just, today there's only so many markets where ground up construction works, as you see with all multifamily and condo development.
In terms of your economics, and for your investors, what is the difference between doing a traditional condo development without a short-term rental Airbnb opportunity versus what you're doing with the Modernist for your investors?
Yeah, I think in Nashville, it used to be a 20% premium. There's a lot more Airbnb supply in Nashville now. I think it certainly depends on the supply and demand of the market, right? And in Greenville, there's nothing like this, and I think it's going to be very well received. And there's really just not a lot of new condo products. So, if you're looking at existing comps, we're thinking a 25% premium. I just position this like for my own investors that are investing in the development side of things. They're really just getting a return on selling condos. And so I just look at the management program or this use of it as being an added layer of flexibility, not only for our buyers, but for our investors. Like, condos, if they do it gives you a lot of flexibility you could own and operate or place in service a quarter of the building if you needed to, if things got really slow, and start earning income right away on it. A lot of our investors sometimes roll their interest in the deal into units, which is a really nice way to capture capital gains versus ordinary income. And then they have a place, in Nashville as an example. To me, it's a nice hedge for investors, because a lot of people think, I've had a lot of institutional investors over the years. This isn't the only thing I've done. I've done industrial, I've done large multifamily. I've had a public REIT investor. I've had private equity investors. a lot of these more institutional investors hear condo and they just go, oh no, we don't do condos. Because a lot of people think of condos as Four Seasons, high end, crashing in 2008. Like that is what the institutional investors thinks with condos. This is really a hedging against in going, okay, there's a lot of different uses here. It's a lot smarter than just a plain multifamily deal where you have to rent it out 24 months. You can rent it out on a much shorter term basis. People can also live there like on an actual cost basis. It ties out to current condo comps. So it really just adds a layer of protection in a down market and a lot of upside in an up market. So, it depends on the market, but it used to be about 20%. I don't know if that's still, it's certainly not in Nashville and Miami today because of the supply as an example, but I also don't think it's being done very well because it's such a newer concept that there's a lot of figuring out that we've already done in the last decade where people are just kind of starting to do that now.
Yeah. In terms of your end users or end buyers, what is the profile or what's the percentage breakdown of those who are buying it for an investment purpose? Maybe they go to the unit a couple weeks a year for a vacation, but they're living, out of town, versus those that are buying it as their primary home, and then they like the optionality to rent it out when they're not there, when they're vacationing.
Yeah. I mean, historically, because we haven't had that professional management element, which is why I wanted to introduce the modernist concept into our new projects, it's mainly been investors, and those have widely ranged from, I mean, you could just say half the building is New York, California, and Chicago that just want to get their money out. They never even come here. They don't even buy the furniture. We take care of the package for them. They write the check and they just set it up as like a cash flowing, investment, and they get
Wow.
the appreciation. And then there's, people like me who I've had a bunch of kids. I live in the suburbs now, but I'm telling myself I'm still going to go to concerts downtown and I want a place, but I don't want to just spend 10 grand on, keeping a condo empty and paying HOA fees. So you have a lot of people like that in like the Franklin area or more suburban areas in Nashville. Um, and we probably get in the past 20% or so that spend a significant amount of time in Nashville, either for work or pleasure or work remotely, or, are here six months in a day because there's no state income taxes in Tennessee, and that actually live there more. I am hoping, and this will have to be proved out as we deliver these new projects, that that number increases and it's more people like, me when I started my company that would want to defray my own permanent cost of ownership. I think that's a trend, this sort of Uber economy for a younger generation that doesn't have such a closed-minded approach to, oh, this is my house and no one can let, that it's more, they're traveling a lot more. They care about experiences versus stuff, and they want that financial freedom that comes with that option. I hope once people see how professionally it's managed, we have a really great hotel management team that's been in the hotel hospitality space for, over 50 years combined, and they are really treating it like a home hotel condo. And so I think we'll see that number increase as we own and operate these things over the years. I think it's just a new concept. So it's going to be, it's going to have to be shown to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift the conversation in our remaining minutes with respect to the capital market side. I mean, ground up development. It's been hard for many of my clients to raise capital in this climate. You have many private equity companies. Their typical response is they can buy well below replacement costs. Why am I going to put money into ground up development? How have you seen the capital market, especially on the equity side, for ground up development?
I mean, it has been the music pretty much stopped for most people in the end of 22. So I thought it was stay alive till 25. We're in approaching June of 26. And, it feels like we start to get a recovery and then, we start going into the Middle East or, I mean, it just seems like there's been a lot of hurdles. Um, I think you have to have the reason why I got mine out of the ground is just my tracker. I mean, I'm building a product that I've consistently delivered over 50% IRRs on through many markets, through, started before COVID, delivered after COVID, built through inflation, built through supply chain issues. And there's just a lot more room in condos than in traditional multifamily because it's just a supply and demand thing. I mean, there's just so much people that want to build. I mean, I still see huge projects getting broken ground in Nashville for multifamily, and it's got to be the worst multifamily market in the country right now, besides Austin, right? I mean, you and people, there's just, family offices, pension funds that don't care if they're building to a four cap. I mean, it blows my mind. I don't, it's just a different type of capital, but they just go, hey, Starbucks just moved here. In the long run, they believe in Nashville. I unfortunately don't have investors that don't care about what they return on their capital and are IRR driven. So I have to make a yield, which is why we focus on this condo product. But I mean, it is much hard. I mean, I used to be able to, send out a project to 20 groups and get a couple term sheets in 60 days and break ground on, a deal in Nashville. So I think I think the future is going to be about alternatives. I think this is my niche I've found, but people are obviously it's like, oh, data centers or, a lot smaller format projects like in logistics or, marina boat storage, these sort of creative asset classes, I think are going to be where you get yield in the next couple of years because so many people, I mean, even still say to me they want to buy something that's cash flowing. And I'm like, with where operating costs are and interest rates, like it doesn't work. You have to do something kind of more pioneering if you want yield and you don't want to just do the exact same thing. So it's been for sure tough. I hope it's getting better. My projects don't deliver till, next year. And by then I'm feeling good about it. But again, we do have a lot of room and safety net in there that is just a lot different than a multifamily building when you're competing against so many people that are doing the exact same thing and supplying the product, which is why we've always tried to differentiate between at least the design and the amenities that we offer, because a lot of, I mean, the same box type construction just went up all over the Southeast, and it really just doesn't differentiate. And, as people in a down works in the heyday, but when the market changes, you start to see people getting in trouble.
Yeah. Well, building permit applications are down significantly. New construction starts are down, and so the folks that I talk to believe that a lot of this absorption will take place, end of 26 into 27, and there will be a need for ground up projects. So it sounds like you may be coming online at the right time. So how about this tagline? It'll be heaven in 27.
There you go.
Right?
And I
There.
hope
We
so.
can we coin that? Can I get an IP a trademark on that? I like it.
Better than stay alive till 25. I don't know what we're gonna have. Can you come up with something for 26?
I know we're already
We'll wait for heaven in 27.
I like it. Let's do it. All right. So I guess my last question here, Meg, is I'm sure you get approached by a lot of folks who are graduating college. I do as well, college and law school grads, and they want to know, where should I start my career in the real estate business? And you've done so many different things in the real estate business, different geographies. So you've got a 22-year-old sitting in your office. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, and it comes up a lot. I try to mentor people as much as I can. I have three mentees right now. One's a UCLA grad, another one's a local Belmont student here that graduated, and I've sort of coached her. But I get involved in a lot of different charities, particularly in wanting to inspire young women to get into commercial real estate, just because it is such a male-dominated field. I look at how much money brokers made in the last 10 years that I've taken on a lot of risk. Being a developer is probably the hardest. There's 1,000 things you have to do on a development project. Brokerage is a really great way to get a lot of exposure to a lot of different projects. And it teaches you, if you have hustle in brokerage, like you can really clean up. And I think that it's just classic, cold calls. And I mean, I'm sure they do it with AI and stuff now, but it's a really, I think a strong foundation is just understanding and being in commercial brokerage. Um, I didn't do that, but I think I look at the experience a lot of brokers had. A lot of them end up being investors or getting into the development side over time because they get so much exposure to deals and they make a lot of money. I think I started on the construction side. I can definitely say the project management has, you know, affected me in my career for the better and my personal life. Frankly, I have 4 kids and run a company, and it's project management essentially with a budget and a schedule, and so that's always good. But CCIM was a really great foundation for me. That's a series of 4 classes you can take in person or online that give you a really strong foundation just for a nice base. Like even if you're wanting to invest your own capital or first starting out, it's a really good practical application for investment real estate and understanding different types. I think CCIM does a really good job. So I always suggested those things. I have a reading list on my website. I read a lot of books when I was getting started. But the thing about real estate that's different than being, a doctor or a lawyer or something is that it is tangible. Like we use AI in our business all the time, but like you can't replace, I mean, maybe Tesla robots will be building my projects eventually, but like you can't replace everybody's always going to need somewhere to sleep, right? Unless we're living in some virtual reality. But I'm just saying like real estate is a hard asset that is not going away with AI. And if you can figure out how to do it efficiently, it's something that, it's just I think it's still going to maintain to be a really good career path because it's just not going away. And it tends to be one of the last things to sort of evolve. It's not like tech, you can't just change it quickly. Like you can't change the way buildings are built, even in decades. It takes so long for real estate and title companies and the whole, all the people that go into a development project to change that. I mean, I'm sure even on the legal side, you're seeing a lot of evolution, but you need the people to be able to think and the experience of what they're doing. So I always tell people, I always say to start with those things. And really a fundamental, this is what I push women, because a lot of women end up getting pushed into the marketing side of things, or frankly, if I'm, or into the sales side of things, which is great, but like understand the finance aspect. You can take modeling classes, you can take them at USC or UCLA. Modeling and financial, which you can do with Claude now, but like just generally understanding the finance side of things, comps, underwriting, capital markets, investment banking. Those are really great ways that if you want to be on, the sponsor side or the money deployment side of the equation, that keeps you kind of in the catbird seat versus some of the other positions. So.
Yeah, no, well said. I was at a breakfast this morning with a college friend of mine, and his kids are older than mine. One's a senior in high school, and the discussion is, what do you tell high school and college age kids today of what to focus your education on? He said, a few years ago, everyone would have said focus on coding and computer science, and with AI, that has now become irrelevant. And so today, what do you tell your kids? And so yeah, everyone needs a place to sleep, and real estate is not going away. We may be using AI to help the efficiency of real estate or law, but real estate's not going away.
And know how to use the AI and help us older people implement it in our companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to go to my younger people to be like, hey, I know you can just do this in AI. Like we use, Notebook LM to like do all of our due diligence now, and it's great. And, I can use it, but the way, there's my nieces and nephews can like create agents and everything now. Like if you
Yeah.
know how to do that, and you can implement it in someone's business that's already successful or has a track record, like you're going to be valuable. You're not going to get, you're going to have a career path there. So I think integrating it into, something, but to your point, real estate's a lot less disruptible because of how difficult it is and how many people are involved in it. It's not like, an accounting task that can just be done and replaced by AI. So, it's just there's too many things. There's 1,000 things, like I said, that make up one process or one project. So
Well, that's why you had four kids, so that they can become your agents and teach you.
I'm gonna look for a return on that investment in about 15 years.
Yeah, well, when people are hearing that you have four kids, they'll think, oh, maybe it's like four kids in a 10-year span. No, you've got, what is it, four kids that I think are two and under or two and a half and
Two
under?
and under. Yeah, they're two
Yeah,
and a half under. Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yep.
You definitely have a master class in management. I've seen it firsthand in your house. But Meg, what whether it's
It's
running
project
CA,
management, I'm telling you.
you can teach a class in project management for sure. From running CA South, the modernist, your own household, keeping Steven in line. You do it all. So look, I truly appreciate you coming on to the show, and best of luck with your company with CA South and Heaven in 27. We coined it today.
Okay, I'm remembering that next year.
I love it. And that's another episode of the Kirsh Connection.